Well, how's everybody doing? Hello there and welcome to episode 19 of the Eagle's Nest. And we're talking about the audio history of ski flying in the Western Upper Peninsula as detailed in Charlie Supersinski's great book, Soaring with the Eagles, the Copper Peak Story. And we are back into 1970 now, the ski flying years at Copper Peak. And this would be the very first inaugural ski flying meet. And it'll be a new chapter in the ski jumping history of the Gogebic Range, commencing with the completion of the ski flying facilities at Copper Peak in the late part of 1969. The pace was fast and furious to get all things completed at the site in time for the first scheduled competition set for February 28th and 29th and March 1st, 1970. Planning started nearly a year earlier with Earl Minkin given the responsibility to oversee the event. The task was formidable to put all the necessary things in place for the completion. First and foremost was the completion of the construction project, which included the erection of the scaffold, blasting away the rock knoll and grading the landing slope, installation of the chairlift, elevator, judges' stand, and chalet, and clearing the parking lots. Quite a job. Since the construction budget had been trimmed to conform to available grants and loans, considerable effort had to be made to ensure that all phases of the project were completed to the specifications of the bids. The task of sponsoring the first ski flying event in this country, something never done before on this scale, was daunting. At the top of the list was the task of preparing the in-run or scaffold. It had to be snowed, or in other words, snow placed on it, to a depth of nearly 1 foot. It is 469 feet long by 10 feet wide. An army of half a dozen guys working nearly a week to snow this enormous structure. Sacks were filled with snow and carried in the elevator to the main observation deck. From there they were carried up or down the slide as the case may be and distributed on the in-run. Snowing of the landing slope and outrun, an area comparable to 2 football fields, posed a special problem. While the Gogebic Range receives an average snowfall of about 180 inches each year, it doesn't all fall early in the season. Typically, 6 feet of natural snow is needed to be compressed to the 1 foot depth level required on a landing slope. This meant that a tremendous amount of snow had to be hauled onto the landing slope and in-run. Getting the snow on the hill was one thing, but moving it to grade posed another challenge. Special pieces of equipment, including a roller to compact the snow and a grader-like bucket and carriage, were home designed to grade the hill. A long cable attached to a pulley near the takeoff with the roller or grader on one end and a bulldozer at the source of the power on the other end were used to groom the hill. These were experimental pieces of equipment and proved to be reasonably effective. For the meet itself, a vast army of more than 100 workers had to be assembled to handle the numerous tasks. This included meet officials, starters, distance recorders, judges, skiers to sidestep the landing hill, calculation team, chairlift and elevator operators, and team leaders for all of the above. In addition, there were individuals needed to sell tickets, park cars, police the crowd, provide ambulance services, secure and direct housing for skiers, obtain transportation and meals for the competitors, enlist members or organizations for sponsoring opening and closing ceremonies, and plan post-meet banquet and award ceremonies. The members of the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation provided the organizational framework for the event and sent invitations to 9 countries for ski flyers. The USA would be represented by 6 ski flyers, including Greg Squire, Adrian Watt, Dave Hicks, and Ken Hawkins of Duluth, and Jerry Martin of Minneapolis. Greg Squire of Duluth was given the honors of being the first skier off the gigantic ski slide. His modest inaugural leap of 255 feet forever cast his ride in the annals of ski jumping history. A total of 30 skiers would participate in the event. Skiers from Czechoslovakia dominated the event, winning the top 3 places. First, Yuri Raska, second, Zbigniew Hubak, and third, Rudolf Duabik. Adrian Watt of the USA scored a strong 4th-place finish, with Zbigniew Hubak setting a new North American distance record of 440 feet, eclipsing the current record of 340 feet set by Greg Squire at Leavenworth, Washington. Peter Stefanchik of Yugoslavia rounded out the top 5 finishers. The inaugural event proved to be highly successful from the perspective of the competition. It brought to the North American continent a new dimension to the sport. Skiers from this continent were afforded a new challenge, an opportunity to set their sights higher than ever before in the ski jumping world. Charlie Supersinski's involvement in the first ski flying event was to construct a photocell timing device to measure in-run speeds. Existing technology was relatively new and quite expensive, but for about $50 in parts and 50 hours of labor, a rudimentary device was built which utilized a timing device from the physics department of GCC. There was no way to test this device until the first skier, who would be traveling at nearly 65 miles an hour, took the first ride off Copper Peak. Fortunately, it worked well enough to provide important meet data. In anticipation of a crowd expected to be in the range of 30,000 people, the Gogebic Range Ski Club invited a number of church groups in the area to sponsor breakfasts and dinners in order to relieve some of the potential demand on existing restaurants. There was even some discussion of building a road connecting Lake Road to Black River Road to assist with the possible anticipated auto congestion on the Black River Road. The anticipated crowd never happened. It was hardly half that figure, and proved to be a huge disappointment to the ski club and their supporters, who worked so hard to develop the facility. This included the church groups, who extended their resources in anticipation of much larger crowds, only to find these efforts wanting. The revenue from the event totaled some $61,783 against expenditures of $58,876, with an additional $10,000 in unpaid bills as of the annual meeting of the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation on April 7th of 1970. The lack of anticipated revenue to cover the full cost of the meet put an immediate strain on the budget of the corporation. Fortunately, the ski club could look forward to a strong summer revenue utilizing the chairlift and elevator ride as a tourist attraction to what had now become the world's largest ski slide. At the USSA Central Division panel meeting held at Wisconsin Rapids in April of 1970, the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation was awarded the weekend of February 27th, 28th, 1971 as the date for the next ski flying meet. While phases of sponsoring a ski flying meet at Copper Peak needed improvement, and income from the event did not live up to expectations, it was generally agreed that the first ski flying event held in the Western Hemisphere had been successful. Certainly the ski flyers had positive things to say about the competition. While the ski jumping community in the United States was basking in the glory of the first ski flying meet at Copper Peak, an event occurred at Oberstdorf Ski Flying Hill in Germany, which would forever give the sport of ski jumping in this country a proverbial black eye. While the ABC's Wide World of Sports found that the wherewithal to film ski flying on March 21, 1970, at Oberstdorf, Their presence was nowhere to be found at the inaugural event at Copper Peak. They were, however, in Europe filming the famous fall of Vinko Bogataj of Slovenia. This film clip shortly thereafter became their trademark and part of their theme for The Thrill of Victory and the Agony of Defeat, showing this famous fall of Vinko, only slightly injured for nearly 30 years, and it did more to damage the image of the sport of ski jumping in the United States than any other single event. 1971 had plans for a ski flying event at Copper Peak proceeding in earnest, even though the competition would be a North American event in which the U.S., Canada, and Japan would participate. Because of the other ski flying hills in Europe, Copper Peak events would occur about every 3 years, or at the best every other year. Adrian Watt of Duluth, who had a strong fourth-place finish in the inaugural event at Copper Peak in 1970, was optimistic about breaking the 500-foot barrier in the U.S. Watt had proven himself as a big hill jumper with an excellent leap of 446 feet in Peninsula in 1969. He and Ken Harkins of Duluth ran into trouble with the USSA when they decided to train on their own with the Norwegian team in the fall of 1970. Watt had taken himself off the USSA team in September of 1970. Adrian Watt would not be the only person to feel the big hand of the USSA in 1971 as the story of Copper Peak events in 1971 unfolds. A total of 28 skiers were scheduled to compete, with 13 from the USA, 8 from Japan, 6 from Canada, and 1 foreign exchange student from Norway. The weather, however, would put a damper on the entire event. Both Wednesday and Thursday, February 24th and 25th, which were scheduled practice days, had to be postponed due to melting temperatures and gusting winds. On Friday, the 26th, competitors were able to get in one round of practice jumping before the weather turned sour again, with unseasonably rising temperatures following by a rainstorm with thunder and lightning. The rain turned into snow early morning, and high winds turned the storm into a blizzard that crippled traffic throughout the upper Midwest and piled over a foot of unwanted snow on Copper Peak. The technology of the day did not allow for a quick preparation of the landing hill. It would have taken at least 1 day to ready the hill for flying again. Thus, the entire 1971 flying competition had to be canceled, to the great disappointment of the skiers and to the many fans who waited in earnest to witness this premier sporting event. Determined that they would not be beaten by the weather, officials of the Gogebic Range Ski Club Tuesday night rescheduled the postponed North American ski flying meet to March 12th through the 14th. Sam Davey, president of the Ski Corporation, said the Canadians were so impressed by Copper Peak and wanted to compete so badly that they were willing to pay their own expenses back to Ironwood if the meet could be rescheduled. Davey added that most of the U.S. jumpers felt the same way. Traditionally, all expenses, including travel, room, and board, are paid by the host club. Expenses for the meet, set for the end of February, totaled nearly $50,000, and the ski club was anxious to recoup some of those lost revenues from the aborted event. For the second time this season, the demise of the ski flying at Copper Peak was accompanied by the drum roll of thunder and lightning, with wind, rain, and warm temperatures. Surveying the hill early Sunday morning, after it was pelted with an unseasonably deluge of rain and continued warm winds, Earl Minkin announced that Sunday's competition would not be held. "It has only rained twice this winter," Minkin said, "both times during the scheduled meet. The incredible irony of the tragic postponements was that prior to each tournament weekend, the weather had been perfect. The weather had forced cancellation of the two 1971 scheduled ski flying events, but storm clouds were also building over the entire Gogebic Range Ski Corporation organization. The probability of the 1972 ski flying meet was blown away by infighting and debt, starting with a letter from the USSA criticizing the Copper Peak Gogebic Range Ski Club Board of Directors structure and qualifications. Details of this dispute are in the text of Charlie's book and are detailed and complicated. Long story short, no ski flying meet in 1972. Every organization experiences growing pains, and the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation was no exception. New ideas and new minds were needed. On Tuesday, February 1st of 1972, a general membership meeting of the club was held at the American Legion Post in Ironwood. The meeting was well attended by members and the media, with lots of issues being discussed, including debt, the aborted lease with the corporation trying to recover some lost revenue, sanctions, memberships, and future ski flying events. The meeting proved to be a good beginning for the community, which was vitally needing to effectively focus on the issues confronting the organizers of Copper Peak. In order to bring new life and experiences into the club, the following resolution was approved at the meeting. It was moved by Wally Coos, supported by Charlie Supersinski, that we amend the bylaws for membership. Membership should be automatic within 5 days after dues and membership fees are paid. The motion was carried. The above resolution opened the door of the club to welcome many new members who joined the club in the next several years. Prior to this resolution, membership in the organization occurred only by vote of the 15-member board of directors. By the time of the annual membership meeting of the club held in April 11, 1972, some 300-plus new members had been recruited into the organization, many by William L. Johnson, and some 150 attended the meeting held at Gogebic Community College. 22 members were nominated to the board. After the tally of votes, many of which were by proxy, a new board emerged, with only 2 members from the previous board being elected. Many of the old board declined nomination. The new board would have their work cut out for them. Elected in order of votes were Wally Coos, Robert Shea, Gunnar Lawrenson, Gene Carlson, Eugene Mackey, George Butson, and George Kahara. Ken Long, Tom Lundeen, Charles Supersinski, Joe Calabro and Tom LeBlond, James Huss, John Lofberg, and John Kostak. It was moved by Wayno Weimery, supported by Chester Coos, that a vote of thanks be extended to the outgoing board for their fine work throughout the years. Motion carried. To that can be added the thanks of the entire Gogebic Range community, the subsequent board of directors, and all those who believe in Copper Peak and the sport of ski jumping and ski flying. Wally Coos was elected president of the newly elected Gogebic Range Ski Corporation Board. He brought to the office his many years of business experience, his talents as a former ski jumper, and his organizational skills working with the junior ski jumping program. The board undertook swift action to get the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation on a more sound financial footing and to pave the way for the next meet. This included, number 1, selling debentures at 6% interest to raise capital to ease the debt burden and assure financing for the next event, installing snow profile pipe railings along the landing slope to make the hill preparation much easier and more precise, approved the formation of the Women's Auxiliary, a group of volunteers to run the chalet during the summer and fall seasons to cut costs, and undertook the aggressive campaign to enroll more members. Mrs. John Lofberg was elected president. Mrs. James Huss was the vice president, and Miss Roberta Imick, secretary-treasurer. Women from the entire area are invited to join the auxiliary in order to further promote Copper Peak and aid in some way for the vast Gogebic Range project. Yes, a new era had begun, but we've run out of time for this episode. So, this is your narrator, Dan McManman, inviting you to join us again for the next episode of The Eagle's Nest. The best way to see and hear us is to go to the YouTube app on your smart TV or your cell phone and search Copper Peak Eagle's Nest. All the episodes are there on YouTube all the time. The episodes are numbered sequentially so that if you started off in an earlier episode and it comes to an end, it will wait about 4 seconds and the next episode in order will come up. Also, you can find us on the Copper Peak streaming site by using social media sites like Google and Yahoo and search Copper Peak. Episodes play on the half hour. We're also on Copper Peak Radio at 102.1 FM. If you're in the area, it's 6:08 a.m. and p.m. and 11:08 a.m. and p.m. Central Time. If you're interested in Charlie's book, Soaring with the Eagles, The Copper Peak Story, it's available at the Depot and the Downtown Art Place in Ironwood. Once again, thanks for joining us here at the Eagle's Nest. See you next time, and keep thinking Copper Peak.